Princess Zareth stood in the shadows of the royal communication chamber, her heart beating fast. The blue light from the screens made her purple skin look darker than usual. She had come here to check on wedding plans, but what she heard made her blood turn cold. "The princess knows nothing," said a voice she knew well. It was High Counselor Vex'lan, her most trusted advisor since childhood. "She believes this marriage will bring peace between our worlds." On the screen, Duke Kethmor of the Azuran Confederation laughed. His sharp teeth showed in a cruel smile. "How sweet. Does she also believe I love her?" Zareth pressed herself against the wall. This was supposed to be her wedding discussion. She was supposed to marry Kethmor in 3 days. Their marriage would join 2 great star empires and bring peace to both their peoples. At least, that was what everyone told her. "Love is for weak species," Vex'lan said. "Once you marry her, we can begin the real plan. Your ships will have free passage through Velthari space. My agents are already in place in the Royal Guard." "And her father still trusts you completely?" Kethmor asked. "Emperor Thelkos sees only what I want him to see. He believes the human reports about our activities are lies. He thinks humans want to break up our alliance." Zareth felt sick. What human reports? What activities? She had never heard about any of this. "The humans are getting too close to the truth," Kethmor said. "Their ship has been asking too many questions. Captain Morrison seems to know more than he should." "Do not worry about one human captain," Vex'lan replied. "After the wedding we will have access to all Velthari military codes. Your fleet and mine can divide their territory. The princess will be dealt with after she serves her purpose." The words hit Zareth like ice water. They were planning to kill her. Her own advisor, the man who taught her about honor and duty, was planning to murder her after her wedding day. She backed away from the door, her hands shaking. Every step on the crystal floor sounded too loud. She needed to get away. She needed to think. But where could she go? Who could she trust? If Vex'lan had agents in the Royal Guard, then anyone might be a traitor. Even her own father did not believe the humans' warnings. Zareth ran through the empty halls of the royal palace. The tall windows showed the 3 moons of her homeworld, rising over the purple seas. This had always been her safe place. Now it felt like a trap. She reached her private chambers and locked the door. Her hands were still shaking as she activated her personal communicator. There was only one person she could trust completely. "Lisa?" she whispered into the device. "Princess? Is everything okay? You sound upset." Commander Lisa Carter's voice was calm and steady. Lisa was human, part of an officer exchange program between Earth and the Velthari Empire. She had been Zareth's personal guard for 2 years. More than that, she had become a true friend. "Lisa, I need you to come to my chambers now and can you contact Captain Morrison? Tell him I need to speak with him privately." "Of course, I'll be there in 5 minutes." Zareth sat on her bed and tried to think. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the human diplomatic ship that had arrived last week for the wedding. He had requested private meetings with her father several times. Each time, her father had refused to see him alone. Vex'lan was always present. Now she understood why. Lisa arrived quickly, still wearing her dress uniform. She was tall and strong, with short brown hair and kind eyes. "What's wrong, Zareth?" The princess had told Lisa long ago to use her name in private, not her title. Humans did not like too much formality. It was one of many things Zareth had learned to love about them. "I discovered something terrible," Zareth said. She told Lisa everything she had heard. Lisa's face grew darker with each word. "We need to get you somewhere safe," Lisa said. "If they have people in the Royal Guard, nowhere in this palace is secure. But where can I go? This is my home. These are my people." "Not all of them," Lisa said gently. "Some of them want to hurt you. Right now, the safest place might be with my people." Before Zareth could answer, her door chimed. Lisa drew her weapon and moved to the door. She checked the security screen. "It's Captain Morrison," she said. "He's alone." The captain entered quickly. He was a middle-aged man with gray hair and tired eyes. He looked like he had not slept well in days. "Princess Zareth," he said with a small bow. "Commander Carter said you wanted to see me urgently." "Captain, I overheard Vexilon talking to Duke Kethmore. They are planning to betray my people. They want to use our marriage to destroy the Velthari Empire." Morrison's face was not surprised. "We suspected this. My government has been trying to warn your father for weeks. We have evidence that several galactic powers are working together to break up your empire and divide your worlds between them." He activated a small device. Holographic images filled the air above it. Zareth saw star charts, communication records, and troop movement reports. "Duke Kethmore has been moving his fleet closer to your borders," Morrison explained. "At the same time, ships from 3 other empires have been gathering just outside your territory. They are waiting for something. We believe they are waiting for your wedding." "My father must be told," Zareth said. "I tried. Counselor Vexilon was present at every meeting. He convinced your father that our evidence was fake. He said humans were trying to start a war between your people and the Azurans." Zareth felt her world falling apart. Everything she had believed was a lie. Her wedding, her future, her father's trust in Vexilon, all lies. "Princess," Morrison said gently, "there is something else. We intercepted communications showing that several members of your royal court are part of this conspiracy. If you stay here, you are in great danger." "I have to try to convince my father," she said. "We can try," Lisa said. "But we should have a backup plan." They made their way to the Emperor's private office. Emperor Thelkos was a large man, even for a Velthari. His purple skin was marked with the ritual scars of his royal line. He looked up angrily when they entered. "Zareth, why do you bring this human captain to my private chambers, and why are you not preparing for your wedding?" "Father, please listen. I have proof that Vexilon and Duke Kethmore are planning to betray us." The Emperor's eyes grew cold. "You dare to repeat these human lies? Vexilon has served our family for 40 years. He has given me wise counsel through 3 wars. Father, I heard them talking. They plan to kill me after the wedding. They want to divide our empire between them." "Enough!" The Emperor stood up, his voice echoing through the chamber. "I will not listen to more of this poison. Captain Morrison, your government's attempts to destroy our alliance have failed. You will leave this system immediately." "Your Majesty," Morrison said calmly, "I have evidence. I have seen your fake evidence. Vexilon showed me how humans create false communications. You want us to fight the Azurans so you can take our trade routes." Zareth felt tears in her eyes. "Father, please, I am your daughter. Would I lie to you about this? You are young and confused. The humans have filled your head with their paranoid thoughts. You will marry Duke Kethmore in 2 days as planned. That is final." At that moment, the door opened. High Counselor Vexilon entered with 6 royal guards. "Your Majesty," Vexilon said with a bow, "I regret to inform you that Princess Zareth has been secretly communicating with human intelligence agents. She is planning to sabotage her own wedding." Zareth stared at him. Even now, knowing what she knew, it was hard to believe that this man who had raised her was her enemy. "Is this true?" the Emperor asked. "Father, he is the traitor, not me." "Guards," the Emperor said sadly, "take my daughter to her chambers. She will remain there until the wedding. Commander Carter, you are relieved of duty. Captain Morrison, you have 1 hour to leave this system." "Your Majesty," Morrison said, "if you will not listen to warnings, at least let me take the princess somewhere safe. Her life is in danger. The only danger to my daughter is the lies you have put in her head. Guards, escort them out." As the guards moved forward, Zareth made a choice that would change her life forever. She looked at Lisa, who nodded slightly. They had trained together many times. Lisa moved first, using her human combat skills to disable 2 guards quickly. Zareth followed, using moves Lisa had taught her. "Father, I am sorry," she said as they fought their way to the door. When you learn the truth, I hope you can forgive me." They ran through the palace halls with Morrison and the remaining loyal guards behind them. Behind them, alarms began to sound throughout the royal complex. Zareth's life as a princess was over. Now she was a fugitive in her own home, with only humans to trust in a galaxy full of enemies. The human ship UHS Liberty moved through space at maximum speed. Princess Zareth sat in the small medical bay, staring out the window at the stars. 3 days ago, she had been planning her wedding. Now she was running for her life. "How are you feeling?" Dr. Amy Foster asked. She was checking the cuts on Zareth's arms from their escape through the palace windows. "Lost," Zareth answered honestly. "I do not know what to do next. I have no home, no family, no future." Amy smiled kindly. She was a young woman with red hair and gentle hands. "You know, humans have a saying, when one door closes, another opens. Maybe losing your old life means you can build a better one. How can you be so hopeful? You barely know me." "That's another thing about humans," Amy said as she finished bandaging Zareth's arm. "We don't think you have to earn kindness. We give it freely." Captain Morrison entered the medical bay. "Princess, we're approaching New Geneva Station. It's the largest human diplomatic center in this part of the galaxy. Admiral Ben Hayes wants to meet with you personally." Zareth felt nervous. She had heard of Admiral Hayes. He commanded all human military forces in this region. "What does he want with me?" "To help you," Morrison said simply. "That's what we do." New Geneva Station was huge. Zareth had never seen anything like it. The station was built in rings around a central core, spinning slowly to create artificial gravity. Ships from dozens of different species were docked at various levels. "It looks like a small city," she said. "It is," Lisa replied. "About 2 million people live and work here. Humans mostly, but also refugees and diplomats from all over the galaxy." As their shuttle approached the docking bay, Zareth saw something that surprised her. Hundreds of different species walked together through the station corridors. On her homeworld, only Velthari were allowed in most areas. Here, everyone seemed welcome. Admiral Hayes was waiting for them at the docking port. He was an older man with silver hair and a kind face. When he saw Zareth, he bowed slightly in the Velthari manner. "Princess Zareth," he said. "Welcome to New Geneva Station. I'm sorry about what happened to you, but I'm glad you're safe." "Thank you, Admiral. Captain Morrison said you wanted to meet with me." "I did, but first, let me show you to quarters where you can rest. You've been through a lot." He led them through corridors filled with busy people. Zareth noticed that humans of all ages and backgrounds worked side by side. On her world, only nobles could hold important positions. "Admiral," she said, "may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why are you helping me? What do humans gain from protecting an exiled Velthari princess?" Hayes stopped walking and turned to face her. "What do we gain? We gain the knowledge that we helped someone who needed help. We gain a clear conscience, we gain the satisfaction of doing what's right. But surely there must be some political advantage, some trade benefit or military alliance." The Admiral smiled sadly. "Princess, I think you've spent too much time around people who only help others when they get something in return. That's not how humans work. We help because helping is good." They reached a comfortable suite of rooms overlooking the station's central garden. Through the large windows, Zareth could see families of many different species walking together among earth, plants, and alien flowers. "This will be your home for as long as you need it," Hayes said. "You're free to go anywhere on the station. You're not a prisoner here." "But I have no money, no possessions, no way to pay for this." "You don't need to pay. This station exists to help refugees and displaced persons. You qualify." After the Admiral left, Zareth sat alone in her new quarters. Everything felt strange. The furniture was designed for humans, so it was a bit small for her tall frame. The food synthesizer offered dishes from Earth that she had never tasted. Even the air smelled different, cleaner somehow. Lisa knocked on the door. "Mind if I come in?" "Please," Zareth said. She was glad for the company. "I wanted to talk to you about what happens next," Lisa said. "Senator Paul Wright is coming tomorrow to discuss your legal status. He specializes in refugee affairs." "Will he try to send me back to my father?" "No. Humans have very strict laws about asylum. If someone's life is in danger in their home country, we protect them. No questions asked." The next morning, Senator Wright arrived with several assistants and legal advisors. He was a tall, thin man with gray hair and serious eyes. But when he spoke, his voice was warm. "Princess Zareth, I want you to know that the human government formally recognizes your request for asylum. You are under our protection now." "What does that mean exactly?" "It means you can stay in human space as long as you want. We can help. You apply for permanent citizenship if you choose. We can also help you contact other members of your species who might want to join you." One of his assistants, a young woman named Karen Mills, spread papers on the table. "These are the standard asylum documents, but there's something else we need to discuss." She activated a holographic display. It showed star charts and communication intercepts. "We've been monitoring the situation in Velthari space since your escape," Wright said. "The wedding was postponed, but Duke Kethmore's fleet is still gathering near your borders. We think they're planning to invade whether you marry him or not." Zareth felt sick. "My people, they're in danger." "Yes, they are, but there might be something we can do about it." Another person entered the room. This was Commander Ryan Brooks from Human Intelligence. He was young and energetic, with short black hair and quick movements. "Princess," he said, "we've discovered that this conspiracy goes much deeper than we first thought. It's not just about your empire. Someone has been manipulating the politics of at least 6 different species." He showed her more holographic data, financial records, communication logs, troop movements, all pointing to a massive plot to destabilize the entire region. "We're sharing this information with you freely," Wright said. "We're also sharing it with the Galactic Council and with leaders of all the affected species." "Why?" Zareth asked. "This information must be very valuable. You could use it to gain advantage over your enemies." Brooks looked confused. "Why would we want to do that? If we can prevent a war, everyone benefits. If we can expose corruption, everyone is safer. You don't want to use this crisis to expand human territory or influence?" Wright laughed. "Princess, humans already have more territory than we can properly manage. We're not looking to conquer anyone. We're looking to help people govern themselves better." This was so different from everything Zareth had learned about politics. In her world, information was power, and power was used to control others. These humans were giving away valuable secrets just to prevent suffering. "There's something else," Brooks said. "We've identified several Velthari nobles who are not part of the conspiracy. Some of them have been trying to contact your father with warnings, but Counselor Vexilon has been blocking their messages." "Who?" "General Tareth of the 3rd Fleet, for one. Ambassador Kylara at the trade station. Minister Kelvin of the Outer Colonies. They're loyal to your father and to you." Hope began to grow in Zareth's heart. Maybe all was not lost. Maybe her people could still be saved. "What can we do?" she asked. "We can help you contact them," Wright said. "We can help you coordinate resistance to the conspiracy, and if you're willing, we can help you build a case to present to the Galactic Council." "What would that accomplish?" "It would expose the truth to everyone. It would make it much harder for the conspirators to succeed, and it might convince other species to help protect your people." Dr. Foster entered with a food tray. "Sorry to interrupt, but I thought you might be hungry." The smell of the food made Zareth realize she hadn't eaten since arriving at the station. Amy had prepared a mix of human and Velthari dishes. "How did you know what foods my species can eat?" Zareth asked. "I studied," Amy said simply. "When I heard you were coming, I researched Velthari biology and culture. I wanted to make you feel welcome." This simple kindness almost brought tears to Zareth's eyes. This human woman had spent her free time learning about a species she had never met just to help one refugee feel at home. As the meeting continued, more humans joined them. Captain Morrison returned with updates from his contacts in Velthari space. Lieutenant Sarah Kim brought news from other refugee communities on the station. Engineer Bob Martinez offered to help modify Zarath's quarters to better suit her needs. Each person offered help freely, expecting nothing in return. They treated her not as an exotic alien princess, but as a person who needed assistance. They listened to her ideas and respected her opinions. "I have a question," Zarath said finally. "If I accept your help, what happens to me afterward? Do I become some kind of human servant? Do I owe you my loyalty forever?" The room went quiet. Then Wright started laughing. "Princess, you don't owe us anything. If we help you reclaim your throne, you're free to rule your people however you think best. If we help you build a new life as a private citizen, you're free to live however makes you happy. The only thing we hope is that someday, if you meet someone else who needs help, you'll remember how it feels to be helped." Late that night, Zarath stood at her window looking out at the stars. For the first time since her escape, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope. These strange, generous humans had offered her something no one else ever had. 3 weeks had passed since Zarath arrived at New Geneva Station. She now worked every day with the human diplomatic team, learning things about politics that she never knew existed. Elena Davis was teaching her about something humans called fair negotiation. Elena was a skilled diplomat with long blonde hair and patient eyes. She never seemed to get frustrated, even when Zarath asked the same questions many times. "I still don't understand," Zarath said, looking at the papers spread across the conference. "Hebethor, why would you give the same deal to both sides? Shouldn't you try to get advantages for your own people?" "Sometimes the best advantage is having everyone trust you," Elena explained. "If other species know that humans negotiate fairly, they're more likely to make deals with us in the future. Trust is worth more than temporary gains." This was hard for Zarath to understand. In Velthari politics, every negotiation was about winning and making your enemies lose. The idea that everyone could benefit seemed impossible. Captain Scott Miller arrived with new intelligence reports. He commanded the UHS Defiance, a fast scout ship that had been gathering information about the conspiracy against Zarath's people. "We have updates from 3 different sources," he said, activating the holographic display. "The situation is getting worse." The images showed fleet movements around Velthari space. Ships from 4 different empires were now positioned near the borders of Zarath's homeworld. "Duke Kethmore has convinced your father that these are joint military exercises," Miller explained. "But our intelligence shows they're really invasion fleets waiting for the right moment to attack." "When?" Zarath asked, her heart pounding. "Soon. Maybe within days. The conspiracy leaders are getting impatient. They're worried that too much delay will give other species time to figure out what's really happening." Dr. Rachel Price looked up from her research station. Rachel was a human historian who had been helping Zarath document the true history of her people. She was a small woman with brown hair and thick glasses, but she had an amazing memory for facts and dates. "I found something important," Rachel said. "Zarath, your people weren't just the original inhabitants of your current worlds. You were also the first settlers on at least 12 other planets that are now controlled by different empires." She showed them ancient documents and archaeological evidence. "These other empires have been hiding this information for centuries. They don't want anyone to know that they stole these worlds from the Velthari." "This is incredible," Elena said, studying the data. "If this information becomes public, it could completely change the legal situation. The Galactic Council would have to recognize Velthari claims to those worlds. And that's exactly why the conspiracy exists," Miller added. "If the Velthari become strong enough to reclaim their stolen territories, several major empires would lose valuable planets and trade routes." Zarath felt overwhelmed. The conspiracy wasn't just about her marriage or her father's empire. It was about erasing her entire species from history. "What can we do with this information?" she asked. "We share it," Rachel said simply. "We give copies to every member species of the Galactic Council. We give it to journalists and historians throughout the galaxy. We make it impossible to hide the truth anymore." "But won't that hurt human interests too? If my people reclaim those worlds, some of them have trade agreements with Earth. Elena smiled. Zarath, we'd rather trade with the rightful owners than with thieves. Besides, fair trade agreements benefit everyone involved. This was another thing that amazed Zarath about humans. They seemed to actually believe that doing the right thing would work out better for them in the long run. Commander Alex Thompson entered the conference room. He was a military officer about Zarath's age with short brown hair and kind eyes. Over the past weeks, he had become her closest friend among the humans. "Sorry I'm late," he said, taking a seat next to her. "I was coordinating with the Refugee Services Department. We've had some interesting developments." "What kind of developments?" Zarath asked. "Velthari refugees. Small groups have been arriving at human stations throughout this region. It seems word has gotten out about what's really happening in your home system. Some of your people are escaping before the invasion begins." "How many?" "So far, about 300. But the numbers are growing every day. They're all asking for the same thing, to join Princess Zarath in exile." Zarath felt tears in her eyes. Her people still believed in her even though her father had declared her a traitor. "Where are they now?" "In temporary housing on various stations. But Zarath, they want more than just safety. They want to fight for their homeworld. They want to resist the conspiracy." "We can help with that," Miller said. "The human military has programs for training resistance fighters and supporting liberation movements." "You would do that?" Zarath asked. "You would help my people prepare for war?" "We would help your people prepare to defend themselves," Elena corrected gently. "There's a difference. Humans don't start wars, but we do help others protect their freedom." Over the following days, Zarath found herself working closely with Alex to coordinate support for the growing number of Velthari refugees. He treated her not like a helpless princess, but like a capable leader. He asked for her opinions and listened to her ideas. "You know," he said one evening as they reviewed supply lists, "you're really good at this." "At what?" "Leadership. Organization. Taking care of people. You have natural skills that go far beyond what royal training teaches." Zarath felt her face grow warm. No one had ever complimented her abilities as a person rather than her status as a princess. "Alex," she said carefully, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Why do you treat me like a normal person? Most beings either bow and scrape because I'm royalty, or they dismiss me because I'm an alien. You do neither." Alex thought for a moment. "Because you are a normal person. You have thoughts, feelings, hopes, and fears just like anyone else. The fact that you were born into a royal family doesn't make you better or worse than anyone else. It just makes you, you." This conversation made Zarath think about things she had never considered before. What if being a princess wasn't the most important thing about her? What if she could be valued for who she was rather than what title she carried? The next day brought news that changed everything. Captain Morrison arrived with urgent communications from Velthari space. "Your father is dead," he said gently. Zarath felt the world spin around her. "How?" "Officially, it was reported as a heart attack. But our sources suggest he was poisoned. It happened right after he started asking questions about Duke Kethmore's troop movements." She couldn't breathe. Her father, for all his faults, had loved her. He had been manipulated by Vexilon, but he wasn't evil. And now, he was gone. "There's more," Morrison continued. "High Counselor Vexilon has declared himself regent until Duke Kethmore can arrive to marry you and claim the throne. But I'm not there to marry." "Exactly. Vexilon is telling everyone that humans kidnapped you. He's using your absence as justification for calling in Kethmore's fleet to rescue you and restore order." Alex put his hand on Zarath's shoulder. "I'm sorry about your father." Through her grief, Zarath felt anger growing. These conspirators had killed her father. They had stolen her people's history. Now they were preparing to destroy everything she had ever loved. "What can we do?" she asked. "We can fight back," Elena said firmly. "We have the evidence of the conspiracy. We have proof of your people's historical claims. And now we have something else, a rightful ruler who wants to save her people rather than exploit them." The Galactic Council is meeting an emergency session tomorrow, Miller added. We can present everything we've learned. We can expose the truth to everyone. Will it be enough? Maybe. But even if the Council acts slowly, we can still help your people resist. The refugees who've joined you aren't just running away. They're the beginning of a liberation movement. Dr. Price had been quiet during this conversation, but now she spoke up. Zarath, there's something else you should know. I've been in contact with historians and legal experts from dozens of species. The evidence about Velthari historical claims has convinced many of them. You have supporters you don't even know about. What do you mean? I mean that other species are starting to realize that if the conspiracy can steal Velthari worlds and erase Velthari history, they could do the same thing to anyone. This isn't just about your people anymore. It's about whether the galaxy will be ruled by law or by whoever has the biggest fleet. That evening, Zarath stood again at her window, looking out at the stars. But this time, she wasn't alone. Alex stood beside her. Are you ready for tomorrow? He asked. I don't know. I'm scared. What if no one believes us? What if the conspiracy is too powerful to stop? Then we keep fighting. We save whoever we can save, and we never give up hope. Alex, if we succeed in saving my people, what happens to us? To this? She gestured between them. He smiled. That depends on what you want to happen. Humans believe in choosing your own path, remember? Whatever happens with your throne or your people, you get to decide what kind of life you want to live. And if I choose to stay with humans, if I choose you, then I would be honored. But Zarath, you don't have to choose between loving me and saving your people, maybe there. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had ended in chaos. Half the member species refused to believe the evidence about the conspiracy. The other half wanted to act immediately, but couldn't agree on what to do. While they argued, the invasion of Velthari space began. Zarath watched the reports coming in from her homeworld with growing horror. Duke Kethmore's fleet had arrived to restore order and was now bombing the capital city. Vexilon's propaganda claimed that rebels were trying to destroy the Empire. But the truth was simpler. Anyone who questioned the new regime was being eliminated. Civilian casualties are rising fast, Captain Morrison reported grimly. The orbital defense stations were sabotaged from within. Your people can't fight back effectively. We have to do something, Zarath said. She had been pacing the conference room for hours, unable to sit still while her people suffered. We are doing something, Fleet Admiral Kate Nelson said as she entered the room. Nelson commanded all human military forces in this region of space. She was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, but when she looked at Zarath, her expression was kind. Admiral, Elena said, what's the status of the relief mission? We're launching in 6 hours, 12 ships, including medical vessels and troop transports. Our primary mission is humanitarian, get civilians to safety and provide medical aid. What about fighting Kethmore's fleet? Zarath asked. We'll fight if we have to, but only to protect innocent people. This isn't about conquest, Princess, it's about saving lives. Colonel Tim Rodriguez spread tactical maps across the table. He would be commanding the ground operations on Zarath's homeworld. Here's the situation, he said, pointing to various locations on the map. The capital city is under siege, but there are still pockets of loyal Velthari holding out in the government district. The spaceport is controlled by Kethmore's forces, but we've identified 3 possible landing sites outside the city. What about my people? Zarath asked. The refugees who joined me, they want to fight for their homeworld. And they will, Rodriguez said. But they'll fight smart, not desperate. We've been training them in human tactics, hit-and-run attacks, civilian protection, intelligence gathering. They won't waste their lives in hopeless charges against superior forces. Admiral Nelson activated a communication device. Princess, I want you to speak with someone. The holographic image of a Velthari general appeared. Zarath recognized him immediately. General Tareth of the Third Fleet, one of her father's most loyal commanders. My princess, Tareth said, bowing deeply. I am so sorry about your father. He realized the truth at the end, but it was too late. "General, what's the situation with your fleet?" "Bad. Vexlan's agents sabotaged most of our ships before the invasion began. I have only 6 vessels left under my command and we're being hunted. But Princess, many of my officers want to join the resistance. They're waiting for orders from their rightful ruler." "Then I'll give them orders," Zareth said firmly. "Work with the humans. They're coming to help us." "Humans?" Tareth looked confused. "But Princess, humans are a young species. They don't have the military experience to fight battles like this." Admiral Nelson smiled grimly. "General, you might be surprised. We've been fighting wars for our entire history. We've gotten pretty good at it." The rescue fleet launched on schedule. Zareth stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiance, watching her homeworld grow larger on the screen. It looked different than she remembered, darker somehow, with smoke rising from several cities. "Princess," Captain Miller said, "we're receiving communications from the surface. Kethmore's forces are demanding that we leave immediately or be fired upon. What do we tell them?" "The truth," Admiral Nelson replied from the flagship. "We're here on a humanitarian mission. If they fire on medical ships and refugee transports, the entire galaxy will know what kind of monsters they really are." The first phase of the operation went better than expected. Human medical teams landed at 3 different locations and immediately began treating wounded civilians. The refugee ships took on thousands of Velthari who were fleeing the violence. But Zareth could see that this wasn't enough. For every person they saved, 10 more were in danger. "I want to go down to the surface," she told Captain Miller. "Princess, that's too dangerous. If Kethmore's forces capture you, this whole mission fails. And if I hide up here while my people suffer, I'm not worthy to lead them anyway." Alex appeared at her side. "Then we go together. I'm not letting you face this alone." Major Steve Collins was coordinating the ground resistance operations. He was a tough soldier with years of experience in difficult missions, but he treated the Velthari refugees with remarkable patience and respect. "The key to this kind of fighting," he explained to a group of former Velthari soldiers, "is protecting civilians while hurting the enemy's ability to control territory. We don't try to hold ground. We try to make them afraid to leave their bases." Zareth joined one of the resistance cells operating in the ruins of her old neighborhood. It was strange to sneak through streets where she had once walked as a princess, now dressed in simple clothes and carrying a weapon. The cell included both humans and Velthari working together. Sergeant Lisa Carter, her old bodyguard, had volunteered for this dangerous mission. "Intel says there's a detention center 2 blocks from here," Lisa reported. "About 50 civilians, mostly intellectuals and artists who spoke out against the new regime." "Guards?" asked Jen, a young Velthari who had lost her family in the first bombing. 12 soldiers plus automated defenses. But Steve taught us how to deal with those. The raid went exactly as planned. The human tactics worked perfectly. Quick, precise strikes that disabled the guards without causing unnecessary casualties. The prisoners were freed and evacuated to safe zones within hours. But what impressed Zareth most was how the humans treated their enemies. When one guard was wounded in the fighting, Lisa immediately gave him medical aid. "Why?" Jen asked, confused. "He would have killed us if he could." "Because he's a person," Lisa replied simply. "Maybe he's on the wrong side, but that doesn't mean we let him die." This was completely different from traditional Velthari warfare. In the old days, enemies were enemies, until one side was completely destroyed. These humans seemed to believe that even their enemies deserved basic dignity. The resistance operations continued for days. Each mission saved more civilians and gathered more intelligence about the conspiracy's plans. But the real breakthrough came when Dr. Amy Foster made an amazing discovery. "I've been analyzing the communication intercepts," she told the command group. "The conspiracy isn't just about your homeworld anymore. They're planning to use the same tactics against at least 3 other species." She showed them the evidence: plans to manipulate elections, assassinate leaders, and stage fake rebellions to justify invasions. "This is huge," Admiral Nelson said. "If this information reaches the other targeted species, they'll have to take action." "How do we get it to them?" Zarath asked. The same way we've been sharing everything else, Elena replied. Openly and freely. We broadcast it to everyone. The decision to make the conspiracy evidence public changed everything. Within hours, fleets from 6 different species were moving toward Velthari space, not to join the invasion, but to stop it. Duke Kethmore found himself facing not just human ships and Velthari resistance fighters, but a coalition of species, who realized they could be next on the conspiracy's list. The final battle took place in orbit above Zarath's homeworld. But it wasn't really a battle. It was more like an arrest operation. Faced with overwhelming opposition, most of Kethmore's fleet surrendered without firing a shot. This is Fleet Admiral Nelson to all ships, came the announcement. Hostilities have ceased. All vessels are ordered to stand down and prepare for inspection by Galactic Council peacekeeping forces. Zarath stood on the observation deck of the command ship, watching as Duke Kethmore's flagship was surrounded by coalition vessels. Alex stood beside her, his hand in hers. It's over, he said. No, she replied. It's just beginning. Charles Webb, the lead human diplomat, had been working with the Galactic Council to establish new rules for the post-war period. When he briefed Zarath on the proposed settlement, she was amazed by its fairness. The Council is prepared to recognize you as the legitimate ruler of all traditional Velthari territories, he said. That includes the 12 worlds that were stolen from your people centuries ago. What about the species that currently control those worlds? They'll be compensated with territory from the conspiracy members' empires. Everyone who was harmed by the conspiracy gets justice, and everyone who was manipulated gets help to rebuild. And the conspirators themselves? Trial by Galactic Council Court. If convicted, they'll spend their lives working to repair the damage they caused. This was justice as humans understood it, not revenge, but restoration. Not punishment for its own sake, but consequences designed to make things better. But the biggest surprise came when Charles presented the new governmental structure for Velthari space. The Council is recommending a constitutional monarchy, he said. You would be the head of state, but your people would elect their own legislature and choose their own laws. You want me to give up absolute power? We want your people to choose their own future. 6 months after the liberation of Velthari space, Princess Zarath stood before the largest gathering of her people in their history. Representatives from all 12 recovered worlds had come to the homeworld to vote on their future government. The Great Assembly Hall had been rebuilt after the war, but it looked different now. Instead of a throne on a high platform, there was a simple speaking podium at floor level. Instead of rigid seating by social rank, beings of all backgrounds sat together as equals. My people, Zarath began. 6 months ago, we were slaves in our own homes. Today we are free to choose our own destiny. The crowd was quiet, listening carefully. These were not the formal court ceremonies of the old empire. This was something new, a conversation between leaders and citizens. I stand before you not as your princess demanding obedience, but as your fellow Velthari asking for your trust. The question before us today is simple. What kind of society do we want to build? Ambassador Nancy Brooks sat in the human diplomatic section, taking notes. She had been working with Velthari leaders for months to draft the new constitution. Nancy was a patient negotiator who helped different groups find common ground instead of fighting over their differences. The proposed constitution guarantees certain basic rights to all citizens, Zarath continued. The right to speak freely, to choose your own work, to practice your own beliefs, and to participate in government regardless of the family you were born into. This was revolutionary for Velthari society. Under the old system, only nobles could hold important positions. Now anyone could run for office based on their abilities and ideas. But rights come with responsibilities. If we choose this new system, we all have a duty to respect each other's differences and work together for the common good. Elder Morthal from the mining colonies stood up. He was an old Velthari with traditional views who had initially opposed the new constitution. Princess, I have studied this document. I have watched how humans govern themselves. I admit I was wrong to resist these changes. My granddaughter has learned more in 6 months of human-style education than she learned in years under the old system. This brought murmurs of agreement from the crowd. The new schools established with human help had become very popular. Children were learning not just facts and obedience, but how to think for themselves and solve problems. Dr. Claire Watson stood at the back of the hall, smiling as she listened. Claire had helped establish the first interspecies university on the homeworld. Students of many different species learned together, sharing knowledge and building friendships that crossed old boundaries. I have seen what cooperation can accomplish, Elder Morthal continued. Our worlds are more prosperous now than they have been in centuries. Our people are healthier, better educated, and more secure. If this is what democracy brings us, then I support it. The vote was held that same day. When the results were announced, 89% of Velthari citizens had chosen to adopt the new constitution. They had also elected Zarath as their first president, but under the new system, she would have to run for re-election every 6 years. I accept this responsibility with humility, she said in her victory speech. And I promise that my first act as president will be to establish the Velthari Human Friendship Treaty. The treaty signing ceremony took place 1 week later. Representatives from both species gathered in the same hall where Zarath had once been told she must marry Duke Kethmore to save her people. Now she was signing an agreement that would save much more than one empire. It would create a new model for how different species could work together. Admiral Kate Nelson read the military provisions of the treaty. Human and Velthari forces will train together and share defensive responsibilities. But our primary mission will be protecting civilian populations and supporting peaceful development. General Peter Kim, who had taken over security operations in Velthari space, nodded approvingly. The Joint Military Command was unlike anything seen before in the galaxy. Instead of conquest and occupation, it focused on disaster relief, peacekeeping, and helping other species build their own defense capabilities. Trade provisions are equally important, added Elena Davis. Open markets, technology sharing, and joint development projects. Both species benefit when both species prosper. The economic alliance was already showing results. Human efficiency combined with Velthari craftsmanship had produced innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. New technologies were being shared freely with other civilizations, raising living standards throughout the region. But the most important part of the ceremony came at the end, when Zarath and Alex Thompson stepped forward together. Today marks not just an alliance between our species, Zarath said, but the first marriage between our peoples based on love rather than political necessity. The wedding that followed combined traditions from both cultures. Velthari ceremonial, robes mixed with human formal wear. Ancient Velthari vows were spoken alongside human promises of partnership and equality. I, Zarath, choose you, Alex Thompson. Not because our species need alliance, but because you make me a better person. I promise to stand with you as an equal partner, to respect your choices, and to build a life based on love and mutual support. I, Alex Thompson, choose you, Zarath, not because of your title or your species, but because of your courage, your kindness, and your vision of a better future. I promise to support your dreams, to share your burdens, and to love you for who you are, not what you represent. The ceremony was broadcast throughout the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species watched as two beings from different worlds made vows that had nothing to do with politics or territory, but everything to do with personal choice and commitment. Dr. Amy Foster wiped tears from her eyes as she watched. She had seen Zarath arrive as a broken refugee and helped her heal both physically and emotionally. Now she was witnessing the princess become something greater, a free person choosing her own path. After the ceremony, the celebration continued late into the night. But the real significance of the day became clear when other species began requesting similar partnerships with humanity. Captain Scott Miller brought the first request to President Zarath and her new husband. 3 different species want to establish cooperative agreements like ours. They've seen how well the Velthari Human Alliance works, and they want the same opportunities for their people. What do they offer in return? Alex asked. The same thing we offered, Miller replied. Friendship, cooperation, and mutual respect. No conquest, no domination, just species working together for everyone's benefit. This was the beginning of what historians would later call the cooperative era. Within 2 years, 7 species had joined the alliance. Within 5 years, it had grown to include most of the civilized galaxy. The old empires based on conquest and subjugation gradually faded away. Some collapsed when their subject peoples demanded freedom. Others reformed themselves into voluntary federations. A few die-hard imperial powers tried to resist the changes, but they found themselves increasingly isolated as other species chose cooperation over conflict. Zarath often found herself serving as a mediator in these transitions. Her unique experience, understanding both imperial thinking and democratic values, made her valuable in helping other species make peaceful changes. The key, she would tell newly liberated peoples, is to remember that freedom isn't just about getting rid of bad rulers. It's about learning to govern yourselves wisely. The interspecies university that Dr. Watson had established became a model copied on dozens of worlds. Young beings of all species learned together, building the relationships that would shape the future galaxy. Admiral Nelson's joint military commands evolved into something unprecedented, a galactic peacekeeping force that prevented wars instead of fighting them. When conflicts arose, trained mediators from multiple species would work to resolve them through negotiation rather than violence. Senator Paul Wright established the Refugee Protection Service, ensuring that displaced beings anywhere in the galaxy could find safety and assistance. The network of human stations that had once sheltered Zarath became permanent institutions helping thousands of refugees rebuild their lives. But perhaps the most important change was the simplest one. Throughout the galaxy, beings were learning that they could choose their own futures. They didn't have to accept the circumstances of their birth or the traditions of their ancestors if those things didn't serve them well. On the 5th anniversary of the liberation, President Zarath addressed a gathering of species leaders from across the galaxy. She stood where her father's throne had once been, but now she spoke as an elected representative, not a hereditary ruler. 5 years ago, I was a princess trapped by lies, facing a future I didn't want with people I couldn't trust. Today, I'm a free citizen of a free society, married to the person I love, serving people who chose me to represent them. She looked out at the diverse audience, humans and Velthari, but also representatives from dozens of other species who had joined the alliance. This transformation didn't happen because any one species conquered the others. It happened because we learned to see each other as equals, to share our knowledge freely, and to build something better together than any of us could have built alone. In the Audi,